We all know who that is. We should. Hello, everyone. This is W, host of the High Art on the Edge page. Today, we have another surprise event. We are shining a spotlight on one of our favorite bands all the way from Scotland. That would be Trashcan Sinatras. What is a surprise event? A surprise event is where I get together with some friends and we discuss and analyze a band that we love, their music, lyrics, concert experiences, so on and so forth. In addition, we bring in a special guest that has had some experience, some affiliation with the band. So, without further ado, we're going to launch this surprise event with a guest all the way from
Ramsgate.
and Ramsgate, that's correct. Alison Thompson, how are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. Hope everyone's well.
I'm sorry, my screen for whatever is jumping around. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but can you hear me and see me?
Yep, I can hear you and see you.
Great. So, Alison Thompson, do you want to tell us how you are how you have been connected and involved with the band somehow, some way?
Okay, so I met the band when I was 15. I was part of the Kilmarnock music scene. I was playing in a little band in Kilmarnock, and the Trashcan Sinatras came to play in Kilmarnock just before they started recording Cake. And yeah, we became friends and kept in contact. And I think at the time, Frank was working in Sirocco Studios as a sound engineer. And my band went and did some recording with Frank, which was great fun. And he heard me playing my trumpet. He recorded me playing my trumpet. So he asked, did I want to come and play some trumpet with Trashcan Sinatras? So we started working out parts for I've Seen Everything quite a few years before it came out.
So at this time, how old were you, roughly?
17.
Okay.
I was 17, yeah.
So he asked to play trumpet. What was your reaction to that?
Oh, I was absolutely delighted. Yeah, it was, yeah. And then it was just really nice working with them because, Frank didn't really write down any music. He would just sing parts to me, and I would try to find notes. What is he singing? And
I think we lost
it was, quite a part for I've Seen. Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, we worked out the part for I've Seen Everything, and I think we recorded it a few times before we went into the studio. I'm trying to remember where the studio was. I think it used to be owned by Van Morrison, and we had Steve Lillywhite, hanging around, and yeah.
What was that experience like, hanging around Steve Lillywhite, who's a very well-known producer?
I can't really remember. There was an awful lot of red wine, and I just remember the studios being really nice. We got really well looked after. There was a cook, and I'd never been so well fed in my life. 3-course meals every day, and wine and dark chocolate. So yeah, and the actual recording process was fairly quick. And then when I was 20, so I think that was when I was 19 or 20, I did that recording. Then I went to a gig with John. John and Frank and I were really good friends since for like 5 years before that. But then John and I started going out, and kind of fell in love, very much in love, and I eventually moved in with him into the into the flat with Frank and Davy and Paul and John and I.
So stop right there. I hear Frank, Davy, Paul, John. You move in with John. Tell us a little bit, without getting too personal, but just tell us, what was that vibe like? What was that experience like? Really good.
Well, I had a full-time job. I've always worked as a mental health nurse, so I was getting up and going to work early in the morning when they were coming back from the studio, and going to bed. So it was quite unusual, and it was actually like being married or being in a relationship with more than one person, because I very much think they were married to each other, and that was a absolutely magical relationship that they had. Yeah.
When you were in the studio in the recording process of I've Seen Everything, did you have any idea of how special this album was at the time and what it was going to be?
Well, I had already heard Cake. I heard like all the early demos. I've got lots of the early demos on cassette. And I already knew they were a really, really special band. Everyone else around that time were playing, kind of like 3 or 4 chord songs with, kind of singing songs about teenage angst. And the Trashcan Sinatras were doing something just so poetic, just absolutely beautiful. And Frank's voice, just they were just like no other band around. They were really, really special. So I already knew how special they were. But I never imagined for a second that I've Seen Everything would, make such a huge impact on so many people.
So since being part of the Trashcan community page on Facebook, there has been great discussion about this album and, of course, the book that came out.
Yeah.
What is it about that album that resonates with you?
I think for me, it's like being around when the songs were being written as well, and kind of like knowing the process, and like knowing the experiences from where the stories for the songs came from.
Is there a story that you would like to share that you can kind of clearly remember?
Well, I think I'm trying. I think for me, the album, the songs, the stories of the songs, for me, just come together as one whole experience. There's not like really one. No, there are actually some stories, like The Perfect Reminder. I remember that story, and that was when Paul was on a bus really late at night on his way home on the bus, and was smoking a spliff, and there was, when he was high, he noticed this girl and thought she was really beautiful, and kind of like became, fell in love with this girl on the bus, but also with smoking the spliff. And yeah, that was what that was. And when he presented that song to the others, singing it just, on his guitar, and I was there when he did that. That was absolutely beautiful, really, really, really beautiful.
And I'm going to be very sensitive, respectful, of course.
Yeah.
While living with John at that time, what did you notice about his work as an artist? How was he evolving? How was he growing?
Oh, well, while he was writing the songs, he was very, very distant. I think they all were. I think if you're a writer and you're in the middle of doing something, it's like you can't. It's almost like you're cut off from kind of like normal everyday conversation, because there's a process going on all the time. So, I kind of like found that they were all kind of like very kind of quiet, thinking their thoughts and trying to work things out. But also John was doing a lot of painting, and, finding cardboard boxes and oil paints, and, kind of they were all over the flat. They were just, paintings all over the flat that then became the cover of I've Seen Everything.
Speaking of the cover of I've Seen Everything, when we had a conversation about a month and a half ago when I first met you, you had something in your place that has something to do with that album cover. Would you like to share that?
I will show you this. Okay. I need to just take you to the corner.
Okay.
So here we have. Can you see this?
No, because you have
the back drop off.
You have your screensaver.
Great. Yeah, that's not really my room. Oh, I've been caught out. Right. Okay. Let me try and put that off then. Oh no.
There we go.
Okay.
There
we have it. There we have the lamp. We have the lamp.
So, for people that not aware of that lamp, do you want to give us a little background to that?
Yeah, so that's the lamp that was in our flat that we all lived together in Kilmarnock. And I've had that lamp since I had my first flat when I lived in Glasgow. So, yeah, but it's been kind of taken around quite a lot and used on stage a few times as well for Trashcan Sinatras gigs. It looks in good condition, but if you look closer, it really is quite shabby.
Can I ask you a question, Alison? The painting on the album.
Sorry?
Cover, do you mind if I ask you a question about the flat?
Yeah.
So the painting, the color scheme, was that the true color scheme of the apartment or the flat, or did John take liberties with that?
No, that was the colour of the flat. We John and I chose this silky green wallpaper. We thought it looked really great. So it was like silky green wallpaper and a red sofa and red curtains and okay. I don't think it was to everyone's taste. Also the green carpet. So it was just all green and then bits of red. So it was quite unusual.
And the video for Hay Fever that seemed to, I don't know, but I don't know, was it shot there? Was that a set they made to look like the apartment?
That was a set they made, yeah. They made an exact replica. And when there was an exhibition in Glasgow once, they recreated the sitting room. And the lamp was there as well. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Keith or Buddy Bell, KB, anything but Keith, do you have a question for Alison?
Well, that's interesting. I was just looking at the album cover there. Did you work with Ray Shulman as part of the trumpet?
Yes, yeah.
And how was that?
Well, I found it really nice and relaxing. I don't know. I think I'm a good girl. I think I'm quite respectful of people, and I was just kind of coming in and doing my bit and then leaving again. So he was a lovely man. He was really lovely.
Yeah.
But that's all. I can't remember anything else really about it.
Is there a song on I've Seen Everything or two or three or the whole album for many people, but is there a song that really, really, really speaks to your heart, captures everything?
I love Orange Fell, absolutely love Orange Fell. And Orange Fell was, so the street we lived on in Kilmarnock had, it was a long street with lots of lampposts, and there was an orange glow on the street when it was dark, when the street lights were on, and that's where Orange Fell originated. Lucasade lamp post. I really love that song. It's beautiful.
So and again, I don't want to get personal in that business, but tell us a little bit about your relationship with the other bandmates. It seemed like you were all good friends.
So first to Frank, and yeah. But yeah, as I said before, it was like they were, it was like they were one person. I know that seems really weird, but at the time, they're not like that anymore. They're all very, very individual, all doing their own thing. Yeah. But at the time, they lived together. They shared loads of the same mannerisms. They said the same things. It was just really quite unusual.
Yeah. What an amazing experience. So when you look back on that experience, obviously a lot of great moments, indelible, priceless moments. In 1, 2, maybe 3 words, how would you describe Trashcan Sinatras?
Just one of the most beautiful bands in the world.
Yeah.
Most beautiful songs in the world.
Yeah. Do you have any other tales to share before we proceed with our conversation here?
No, but you can come back to me if but at the minute, no.
Okay.
Unless you want to ask anything.
Well, if you want to, this is a moment for you to promote anything. You're working on some music. Anything?
Well, no, we brought it, and my husband and I. So when the Trash Cans were supposed to sign a new record deal with Independiente, we all decided to move to London to sign that record deal. So that was in 1997, I think. 1997. And so I got myself a job, a mental health nurse job in London, found somewhere to live. But then Independiente didn't sign the Trash Cans. They signed Travis instead. And yeah, I know, can you believe it? And the Trash Cans didn't move to London. They went bankrupt. They lost their studio. It was really absolutely awful. It was really depressing. They ended up, some of them having to move back home to live with their parents. Some of them living in the studio just until, with like not being able to pay the electricity bill. Just living in a cold, freezing cold studio until that got repossessed. And during that time, John was coming down to London and going out busking, so he had money to get back to Glasgow. Yeah, absolutely grim times. But yeah, sadly, the kind of distance just didn't work. The relationship just didn't work. He's very depressed. And I I joined another band basically, and my husband and I have been together since for 23 years. So it wouldn't have, if the Trash Cans hadn't if Independiente hadn't signed Travis, life would have been a lot different for everybody. But for me, really, it was a real blow at the time. But so I have been playing in a band with my husband, who was also a Trash Cans fan. And when I went along for my audition, I said, "Oh yeah, play trumpet with Trashcan Sinatras." He's like, "Okay then, you're in."
You're in. No, thank you. Well, thank you so much for being part of this discussion and sharing us the lamp, the highly coveted lamp. It's probably like that scene in Citizen Kane. Maybe it's a spoiler, but so this has been a wonderful experience. Anytime we talk trash cans, you're more than welcome to join us again if you have any more stories to share. So thank you so much for participating.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot.
You're absolutely welcome. And we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Allison.
Yeah, thank you, Allison.
You're welcome.
Cheers.
So that was our first surprise guest, Allison Thompson. My name is W, also known as William, host of the High Art on the Edge page. So I'm here with two of my co-pilots who helped me run the Trashcan Sinatras page on Facebook. Buddy Bell, Mark Morris. We have been administering this page for, I would say now a year and a half, 2 years. And we've watched this family, this community evolve and grow into some really amazing experiences. So I really want to bring my phenomenal friends here into this conversation. We're going to shine a light on Trashcan. So I'm going to throw a curveball at Mark Morris because I know he's a big baseball fan. So Mark Morris, here is your question. I want you to tell us, you are a big Red Sox fan, a Boston Red Sox fan. You're also a big Trashcan Sinatras fan. How are they alike?
Well, we had, excuse me, we had 86 years without a World Series. So the 8 years it took to get weightlifting released, if you're a huge fan of the Trashcan Sinatras, yeah. I mean, that's a lifetime for people who are craving new music. At least we got to see the Red Sox play every year, even though they didn't win the World Series. They got to the playoffs, they got close. When you didn't have any new music from the Trashcans, there was just empty. So that would be the similarity, yeah.
Damn it. I knew I couldn't get you. And now I'm going to throw a little bit of a zinger maybe to Buddy Bell, also co-host, co-administrator on the TCS page. So Buddy Bell, we just spoke, a week ago?
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to start with a question before we dive into their music that you and I discussed. I want to start off with this, and then we'll obviously get Mark's opinion.
Okay.
We know there's a Trashcan Sinatras page or album coming around the corner. We just don't know when, right? We don't know when that sucker's going to drop.
Yeah.
So here's my question for you. What do you think this album is going to sound like? This brand new TCS album. I want to start with that.
It is a great question. We kind of touched on it last week, and I think we may have a differing of opinion, and we're probably both way off the mark. But here's my thinking. I think the last two singles have been amazing. They're excellent, and they've gone in a different direction to what I expected to hear. I don't think the album's going to sound like that. They'll be on it, I guess, but I think that I definitely think there's going to be a welcome back type of track. It might not be the first track, but there's going to be a blood rush, welcome back, guitar, thrashy noise, lovely noise track, or two or three or four. And I think that the band members, Alison touched on this as well, that they're all individual and unique now, and they were all kind of as one during Cake and probably I've Seen Everything, and maybe even getting as far as Happy Pocket. I think their influences individually will come into the fore. And let's return to John in this one especially. John's now out there on the stage performing on his own, and I know that he was really nervous about doing that. And the nerves, I was very lucky enough to see, I think it was his second live performance over at the Irvine Harbour Arts Centre. And but he was just amazing. And then I seen him a few months later over in Straven, where he was supporting Norman Blake and friends. And he'd really found his groove, man. He was so good. Just amazing. And the confidence was there. The stories were always there, and he tells a lot of stories within Trashcans Live, but he was telling stories amongst the sort of solo stuff. And he took on a Prefab Sprout song and he made it his own, and he's now performed that with Martin McLuhan from Prefab Sprout. He's performed on stage with them. So I think John's got this new maybe not new, but this confidence has grown from his live stuff, and it has to be interjecting into the work he's doing with the trash cans. Another thing I think we touched on last week is I think, and I'll hopefully he'll come on and either tell me I'm wrong or that I'm right, but I think he'll now be writing John songs that possibly Eddie's going to put onto her albums, and then trash can stuff. And I think he'll be thinking trash cans music when he's writing a trash can song, more so maybe the music than the lyrics. Then there's the fact that we've had John, Stephen, and Davey in a studio on a regular basis. So I think they were booking out a weekly studio. So they were performing live and doing stuff live. Paul and Frank were pitching in via internet. Oh, that's the way it appeared, and that's the way it was explained in one of John's Patreon interviews that he'd done a while ago. That live in the studio performance, Davey on bass, is just going to be, so creative. So that's going to be bouncing out some really good ideas. So so that was a long way to answer your question, that whilst I do love the two singles and there's that kind of electronic move, I think that's just a small slice of the cake, and excuse the pun. And then there's all that other stuff will come in, because, we don't get an album, even Cake, where it was kind of more acousticy, but we don't get an album of 10 tracks that sound the same. We get an album of just completely different songs. They melt together in a great pot of music, but not two songs sound the same. And I think we've got that coming to us with some rocky stuff.
I agree with that, Keith, because I see, there's always one, and you called out several of them. Autumn from Wild Pendulum, right? There's, what are some other ones? One at a Time. There's some heavier tracks, and I don't know if you attribute that to Paul. I know if you listen to some of the stuff Paul does sonically by himself, it's oftentimes more heavier. I mean, that's the lead guitarist in him. I mean, he's got beautiful, wonderful melody that he works and weaves into the songs, but I think he also has that harder side to what he likes to do sometimes. So I think you're right about, I think there'll always be a place for that in their albums. And if there's more, hey, more the merrier, because I enjoy it. It's just it's a contrast. I agree.
Let's go all the way back to the beginning, shall we? And I know we have a lot to get through, and I also know we're going to continue this conversation at a later date. So let's start with Cake. And I've known you guys for quite a while, but to be very honest with you, I cannot remember when you first and how you fell in love with Cake. So I'm going to start with Mark. Let's retrace our steps, shall we? Give us that first experience with the album, and I want you to tell us, if you don't mind, your favorite track or tracks.
Sure. I think I had heard them initially on some alternate radio in Boston or Providence. We had two pretty good radio stations that would bring a lot of the British music. We could hear it over here for the first time. And I've often found that bands that I love from Massachusetts, Buffalo Tom, the Pixies, Dinosaur Jr., a lot of them got bigger over in Europe before they ever got known in the United States. And of course, I found through my travels through England, asking everyone I know, do you know the Trashcan Sinatras? And I'm amazed that a lot of people don't know them. And they were bigger in the United States than they were initially over in Britain, Great Britain. So that was very surprising to me. But I can see how I've seen it go the other way. I think we're intrigued with what we don't know sometimes because it's not right in front of us. So I heard the first song I heard was not Opportunity Knocks. It was first single. Other songs, I apologize. I'm thinking of Hay Fever, but the Only Tongue Can Tell. And I heard that and I fell in love with it. And I got a bunch of friends to go down and see them at a club in Providence, a really small club. And luckily the next day they were playing at the Hat Shell, which is a famous half shell that's on the Charles River in Boston, where they have the fireworks and the 4th of July pops concerts. It used to be nationally broadcast. Pretty special place to play. They played a Saturday afternoon there, free show. And it was wonderful. And I just got into them at that point, and then I lost touch. Cake is my favorite album. It's, sometimes the first one's always your favorite. My favorite song off Cake is You Made Me Feel. And that last line, it just rips my heart out. Last line by Frank. And now I've swallowed my pride. I promise you I couldn't eat another word. But yeah, that's just I copy and paste that so many times and send it to people. But so I lost touch, and luckily, I the internet, Joe Di Maria really kept this band in the minds of Americans and maybe much of the world. But I found that they had a new album, and I tried to order it, and I couldn't get my hands on a Happy Pocket because it wasn't released in the United States. So I ordered one of the B-side albums, and it came to me from Westwood, Massachusetts, which is literally from where I grew up one town over and where I live now, 20 minutes away. And I said, who the heck in the world is sending me a Trashcan Sinatra CD from Westwood, Massachusetts? So I reached out, and it was Joe, and we became friendly. And yeah, it's gone from there. But I do thank Joe so much. But yeah, my favorite song is You Made Me Feel, and Cake is my favorite to this day.
Wow. Thank you for sharing us your entryway into the band. All right, Buddy Bell, you're up.
Oh my, strap in for this one. To help with my memory and a little bit of self-promotion, I created this on my 50th birthday, which was just over 5 years ago. And this is, it's not an autobiography, but it's a kind of my life with music from birth. Therefore, the first song was The Beatles, was number one. 31st of December is my birthday. Please remember that. Send presents. And so what I thought I'd do is actually read some words that I wrote about Cake and about meeting the trash cans, or being introduced to the trash cans. So I wrote this probably when I was 49 and a bit, and I'll just read it straight from the book. So it says, as we rolled into the 90s, I had forged a writing relationship with the secretary at Go Discs. This was the record label that had brought Billy Bragg to the masses. I'd asked for any other material that I should watch out for, and amongst various great releases were the House Martins and the Captains of Industry, plus this new band from Scotland called the Trashcan Sinatras. It was in this band I found real solace. The first album, Cake, painted such imagery with their very, very clever lyrics. This band, albeit with infrequent releases and large gaps between tours, were and are and will always be my favourite band. Nothing can top them. That's my Captains of Industry album that I bought the same day in a little record store in Carlisle called Pink Panther. And I would love to show you the vinyl version of Cake, but I don't know where I've put it. So there's my CD version, which came along a little later. So yeah, so that was my introduction, was through, I'd been swapping notes and letters with Nikki, the Go Discs, and she had sent a lot of, Billy Bragg was in a punk band called Riff Raff, and nobody could find any singles, but she had, Wiggy had photocopies of the covers of the singles that they'd released. So he kindly sent me copies. I couldn't play them, but I could look at them, of the Riff Raff singles before Billy went on to do his amazing solo work. And I was introduced to the band, Trashcan Sinatras.
Okay, so now, what is that behind you?
Okay, so, as well as the book, and so I created this sort of leaflet pamphlet, and I handed it out to sort of very close friends and my relations. So I had a 50th birthday meal, and I told them not to bring me any gifts, that I would have gifts for them. So I got them a book each, and I don't have any of the CDs with me, but that leads to 3 CDs, which is now a Spotify playlist, which is the 50 songs from 67 through to 2017. And I treated myself to a T-shirt. I'll turn it around in a minute, but the back of the T-shirt, and that gives you a clue to my favourite song from Cake. Now we raise a toast to celebrate as December's embers fade, and every fire is just a hoax for January's little joke. And I take that as my song because my birthday's on the 31st of December. So my December embers are fading on my birthday. And then we start drinking on the 31st. And I don't know, we stop about the 4th. And that becomes January's little joke, born in 1967. And another favourite of mine is a guy called Malcolm Middleton. So I stole lyrics from his song, which, and I slightly paraphrased, and it says, I'll never be good at anything and my stories are pish. His song is and my songs are pish. So that was that's where that came from.
Keith, what's encouraging to me is we've also shared the same lament about the sizing of the Trash Cans merchandise. So seeing that shirt, when I come see you over in England, maybe I can grab that. So I'll get
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh man, such a good.
Shout out to the Trash Cans. So a couple 3Xs, please.
I love that story, and I love that what you've created. It's that song. It's funny, that song for me, it took a long time for me to really appreciate the beauty of that song. To be very honest with you, now it is. I can see why it's so important to you. I'm also a January birthday, so it's kind of a joke for me. But I won't steal your thunder there. So with Cake and Mark Trammell and I discussed this a couple of weeks ago on the TCS page. Is there a lyric? I know you just shared one, Keith. Mark, is there a lyric or two that really sticks in your mind?
I had mentioned the "You Made Me Feel." Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not going to pick a particular lyric. One thing I've noticed, and I think the band writing, and I don't know. I wish I could tell more who wrote which lines. I try to figure it out a lot, but I don't know that I'm correct.
Yeah,
but they've gotten away a little bit from the wordplay. They've discussed this, becoming more straightforward with their lyrics, more obvious, which is good because, I mean, that's what they want to do. But I've also found, and I wrote something to John about this, and I didn't hear back. But I think they've become a little bit more jammy, like more of a jam band, and maybe the lyrics being more out front and open alludes to them going different ways with music and jamming more, saying less, jamming more. Like when you got that, I hung my hat on the Willows and some of those songs where they just riff at the end, and I picture them all being in studio, just working out riffs and figuring out what they want to do, and it just becomes a long jam, and I think they like it, and they put in the song. And I don't know if I'm correct, but I wonder if that's why you simplify one thing and you make the other parts more, deeper, I suppose, musically. But yeah, that's one of my insights as far as what they've been doing lyrically lately, I think, at least.
So with this album, Keith, Cake, I know it's so treasured by many for so many great reasons. But for me, when I go back and listen to this album, which to be honest is not very often, but when I do, it's like falling back in love again, right? But what's so astounding to me about this album is how it transitions from one song to another. And it just seems like this is their first album. How the hell did they do that so beautifully? Would you agree with that statement?
Totally. It's ahead of its time. It's so clever, and that obviously that's credit to the band, but credit to the production of it as well. It's so clever, and I think picking up on the lyrics, I think they've said, Mark, that looking back at the lyrics of the first couple albums, they thought they were trying to be too clever. I couldn't disagree more. I thought they were amazing. The lyrical play in the songs is just fantastic. And it's not answer your question, but I'm going to say this because I do play it often, and it's you get days where music isn't going to happen. You can still put Cake on. There's not many albums you can do that with. It's just a pleasure to put on and listen to it. And you can. I'm in my office at the minute. I can have it in the background, literally on repeat all day, and it kind of drifts into my mind and then drifts out again. It's just there. I can have it downstairs on the record player at full tilt and really rocking out to it. I can have it in the car and do long journeys. It's an album, even amongst the Trash Cans and albums. It's one that doesn't matter your mood, doesn't matter the fettle you're in, as we would say here. It'll just work. It'll just work for you. So yeah, it's not even my favorite album, but it's a very special album. Yeah.
A question for Allison, because she gave some insight into when you talked about that album being ready when they played it, how it seamlessly got recorded. Allison, you said though, even when they were still Cake hadn't come out or had it, he was still years prior having you work on the trumpet solos. So these songs were in the pipeline for a while. When you initially came on, I was going to ask you, when you first saw them, were they strictly original or were they still doing covers? How far in advance had you been helping them write songs that got released at later dates?
They were strictly original songs, apart from, I think they did Stray Cat Strut.
Okay.
But everything else was original, and yeah, it was just all the songs from Cake.
Yeah.
We're going to move this conversation along, but I will say, and I think people have heard, they probably don't want to hear so much about from me because I've already been kind of sharing this stuff a little bit. But I will say my favorite song now is actually Circling the Circumference. And the reason is because that song, for me, I can play it anytime, anywhere. And after it's over, I'm going to hit the repeat button 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 times. When I saw them perform it live, when they are here in San Francisco, it was that blood rush. I was like, I never thought I would ever see them play that, ever. And I think, I could be wrong, I think when Frank was talking and sharing a story about that song, I think he said it was like kind of it felt like a college fraternity song. Maybe it sounds rudimentary, I'm not sure. But it's the song that really, it fires me up. And it just, it lyrically, I love it. I love the tempo. I love the swell, the buildup. Obviously, the ending. I mean, it is pure pop perfection. Now, you ask me in a month's time, it could be a different song. All right. So let's transition. I think this will be a good one to end on. But I definitely want to move into the second album. And I've Seen Everything. So let's start with Keith. I want you to be so brutally honest. If you can remember your initial reaction on hearing the album for the first or second time, was it, wow, what's going on here? This isn't what I was expected. This is going to take me a while. Or was it love at first sight?
I think I was sold on the band by that stage. So to be honest, they could have released an album of nursery rhymes and they would have been the best nursery rhymes I've ever heard. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask. Now, I can't remember. I've brought this up. I can't remember if they started pumping this out before the album came out. And I was, it's like, the kids have the Panini books for the football players. I don't know if you have American football, but soccer players in the UK, and you had to get every sticker and Swapsy. Well, I had to get every disc into this, and they weren't released all at once. So you got the box and the first single, which was Hay Fever, and then you had to get the collection after. So I remember that, and I didn't make much money in my paper round. There was weeks where I had to borrow from my parents to pay the papers rather than actually make a wage from it, and because I was a news agent rather than a newspaper boy, even though I was delivering paper. So I didn't have a lot of money, but the money would be going on Hay Fever and stuff like that. So no, I fell in love with it right away, but then I had to keep revisiting it to decide why and which songs. And there was songs that really, I found Blood Rush a bit scary first time I heard it. So because that's not the band, and then it was completely the band. Yeah. And what I found with we talked about, doesn't matter what mood you're in for Cake. What I found with I've Seen Everything is there was a song on that album for each mood that you had. So you may not play that whole album, you're just in an I've seen everything mood, or you're just in a blood rush mood, or whatever. So there was songs there that would just nail that moment that you were feeling on a Friday night or a Saturday night or whatever. Yeah.
Favorite track?
Well, that will change tomorrow as well. No, The Perfect Reminder. It is as simple as that. There's so many good tracks. Some of the lyrics, like you kind of knew what Paul was up to there, and I guess that sort of my early 20s, I think, by the time this came out, was that right? That would tie in with my lifestyle at the time. I maybe wasn't on a bus with a spliff, but it makes sense. So I just really liked that lyric, and I just thought, and I always think Paul's vocals are just beautiful. It's just so fragile that I don't think anybody else could nail that the way he does. And when I heard him sing it in Runcorn, I'm not ashamed to say the tears were stripping down my face, because it just fits Paul perfectly. Yeah, gorgeous. So yeah, favorite song, Perfect Reminder.
Mr. Morris, your turn.
I fell in love with him immediately too. I was so hooked, like Keith. Just so happy to get that album. And when it came out, I'm looking at the track list now I think my favorite song on the album, it's varied. I think initially, of course, America, we first heard Hay Fever. So I love the piano. It just jumped out at me. I think over the years, though, Work to Miracle is one of my favorites. I love the desperation in Frank's voice. At the end, nobody leave this room. Nobody gets out alive, I just think it's that song builds to a crescendo. Yeah, I really love that. But I'm like Keith. I mean, the whole album is so brilliant. Send for Henny came along to me a little bit later. I started to enjoy it a little bit more when I get more into the lyrics. Come into my house, throw open the windows wide, then back to your house to do likewise. Springs eternal, hope springs eternal. Let's, he talks about in other songs. Well, I think in that song, yeah. Weightlifting, yeah. Dust around the empty room. And that's like part 2 of him saying, get out, open the windows, let the sun shine in, life's bright. So those lyrics resound to me, yeah.
What would you say, Mark, is the clear distinction, the difference in the production from Cake to I've Seen Everything? Or how did their sound change to you?
I think it just, I don't know if it's musical technology or just their choice of how they want to record things. I think I've Seen Everything is a little bit crisper, but I don't necessarily like that more or less. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, I had a conversation with Peter Jenner, who actually managed the Trashcans for a short period of time. I met him after Billy Bragg gig in Massachusetts, and I didn't know he had managed them. And then we started talking, and he had said that one of his initial, I wouldn't say complaints, but he said to the band, I'm having a hard time understanding what you're saying on that first album. He did say that. He thought it was muddled. But I think, like Keith said, sometimes I enjoyed the having to figure it out, especially not having the same accent. I have the Boston accent. You guys got the Scottish accent. And I was like, to me, it was a mystery to listen to first of all, to figure out what they're saying. And then secondly, to see what the heck they meant by what they were saying. So I loved that about it because it was a puzzle. And sometimes it would take me 6-7 years to figure something out. And I think that's the beauty in it,
Yeah, and you realize, oh, that's what Frank said.
or what he meant. As you get older, you understand things a little bit differently, and yeah, that's always been something I've enjoyed about their lyrics. That it makes sense now that it didn't make sense then.
Allison, I have a question for you. In your history with the band and with Frank, particularly in his lyric writing and the wit, did you spot that immediately? Did you feel and understand that our ears are listening to something extremely rare?
Yeah, and I think there's lots of, I don't know about you, Keith, but there's lots of like Scottish, kind of, it's like a secret language. There's lots of like, secret Ayrshire language as well. So maybe jokes and, things that would, are not, you might misinterpret them or interpret them completely differently. Yeah. But yeah, I'm just thinking about What a Miracle, and I don't know if anyone has an idea, kind of like about some of the lyrics for that and what, where the ideas came from. Anyone?
Enlighten us.
Well, we went, John and Frank and Davy and I, with their girlfriends, went on a murder mystery weekend. It was somewhere, I can't remember. It was Loch Lomond or something. And it was brilliant. It's in this really old hotel where there was a murder mystery happen. We were all really keen on playing Cluedo quite a lot. So we thought, let's go and go to a hotel and do a murder mystery weekend. It was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, but a few months later, the lyrics started coming out. Nobody leave this room, nobody. Yes. So it was from that. Also, Frank's a huge fan of Columbo.
Yeah.
So,
So good. So good. The that experience, or at that time, Keith, seeing them live for this album, I've seen everything. Do you want to share anything about that?
Do you know that I can't? I'm a really late to the live trash cans. So no, I cannot share anything from the 90s. Didn't see them live. No idea why. My musical influences outside trash cans were taking me to the Wonder Stuff, the Mission, Senseless Things, all this kind of stuff. And I was loving the gigs, but I just wasn't going to see. I mean, they didn't play live that often anyway. I lived down in Dumfries and Galloway, so they didn't really play. I don't even think they played Carlisle at any stage. They might have done with prefabs, I'm not sure. But I certainly didn't. So I've made up for it since. So whenever they tour, I'm with them. Not literally, but, probably the van behind them in the motorway. And it's a big regret because they are just fantastic live. But no, didn't see them. It was all records.
Mark, how about you? Did you see him for that tour?
I did, yeah. I saw them. I think it was called Club Babyhead in Providence. I think we had about 6 friends. And as I said, the Friday night prior to the Saturday show at the Hat Show. It was great. I mean, I didn't know what they looked like. I didn't have any idea what I was going to see. Yeah. I will admit, I think they were, Tom Brady calls it, get the fans lubed up for the 4 o'clock games. They have a few more drinks. So I'll admit back then they seem to have had a few beers before the sets that they do now. But it was fun to watch, and they were having a good time. You could tell they were young guys, in my opinion, conquering America. They were selling so many albums over here and getting a lot of radio play. So I loved it, and they will be, and were and will always be one of my favorite bands of all time.
Can I just chip in and say that it's a shame you never saw them a long time ago. Frank used to be quite wild on stage. He's really, he's really tamed these days. He's very well behaved. But I remember one time, being on stage trying to play my trumpet part, and he was spinning around with a microphone stand. He used to be really, really quite wild, swinging the microphone round about, spinning the, I think, one time ended up with his head inside the bass drum. But he really was really rock and roll. Now, he's very, he's matured, can I say?
Yeah. I know there's quite a few videos up from the King Tut's gig. I can't remember which year it was, but yeah, Frank was definitely rocking out then, for sure. So enjoyable. So I watched them a lot.
When they came to San Francisco for this album, I've shared this. So I'll move through this really quickly. They played at a very small, amazing venue called Bimbo's, and I just remember the buildup and anticipation was just so thick and palpable. So when they came on, the place was already kind of rocking. They had a pretty strong following here in the Bay Area. And that's when I was like, oh my God, I know I just watched something dearly, dearly special. we're going to end this part one of our conversation. Oh, sorry, I didn't get to share my my favorite song here. I'll share it right now. I'm going to read some of the lyrics, and I think you guys and Allison might know the song. So, Cake Brick Road in summer 1981, we shared a house and garden at the height of the bombing on the run in busy, hazy London. Of course, I'm talking about Early's. So for me, this is my favorite track from the album. And again, it wasn't my favorite track to begin with. It took a while for me to appreciate its tremendous power. And perhaps seeing it live changed that. Lyrically, it paints the image so beautifully. Delicately, John's work with it. It's just an amazing song to actually end the album with. Yeah. And every time I hear it, it just kind of, like many Trashcan songs, it kind of stops me in the tracks. So that is my favorite song from that album. And I don't think that's going to change.
I think the closing two work really well as the closing two. So I think the Hairy Years just drifting into Early's are just nice dreamscapes created by the lyrics of both those songs. Yeah. You've kind of had the punch from some of the earlier tracks.
Right.
Just a nice way for it to mellow out as you get to the end.
Do you know where John was working his early shifts?
It was McDonald's, wasn't it?
Yeah. Was it McDonald's? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he on the tour 2 tours ago, I think he shared some of that with the audience. And that's another, and we're going to get into this in our next conversation, how much they've opened up.
Yeah.
How much they're really connecting to people. Not to say that, they never did that. It just seems like now with the advent of the internet and all that, they've really learned how to be part of the collective experience with their fan base. And it's been wonderful.
I think John doing his solo gigs as well. And I look forward to when he starts sort of covering or playing some new John songs, if you like, but he obviously plays mainly Trashcan songs, and the gig is a kind of story, and then the song, a story, then the song. Yes. And then I've probably heard the song or the story a dozen times, and it's still great to hear because you can feel the emotion or the humor or whatever that is part of that story, and it brings the songs back to life again.
We're going to get a final word. Allison, anything else to share before we wrap up part one of our conversation?
No, let's leave it for part two. But thank you very much. Nice to hear your stories. Nice to, be involved.
Well, thank you for participating and sharing these authentic stories with us.
Yeah.
You're more than welcome to join us in part two. Keith, anything, Buddy Bell, anything you want to share?
Yeah, hopefully you can, Alison, because we're only just getting into I've Seen Everything and then the music that flowed out of that and followed that. And of course I can then tell some gig stories because we're getting to the phase of my Trashcan fanatic that saw them live, met the band, met the guys, got to chat to them, got friendly with some of them as well. So there's a lot more to come in part two, probably in 3 as well, the way we're going. Really enjoyed it. Thank you for organizing it. And
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we'll also have some other special guests as well. So my name is W, also known William, host of the High Art on the Edge page, here to do another surprise event. Thank you, Allison Thompson. Thank you, Buddy Bell. Thank you to Mark Morris, who had to jettison. And we look forward to talking more about Trashcan Sinatras and the impact they've had on our lives. Take care, everyone, and keep listening to TCS. Ciao.